Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya lila. All glories to A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. All glories to Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Chapter 13, text 161. Ei Saba Artha Prabhu Swarupe Rasane Ratri Dine Gare Vase Kare Aspadane. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sit in his room with Swarup Damodar and taste the topics of these verses day and night. (162) Nutya kale sei bhave avishta hana shloka padina se jagannatha mukha chana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced completely absorbed in ecstatic emotion. While looking at the face of Lord Jagannath, he danced and recited these verses. 163. Swarupa Gosha Nirabhagya Nayaya Varnana Prabhuteya Vista Yanra Kaya Vakya Mana. No one can describe the good fortune of Swarup Damodar Goswami, for he is always absorbed in the service of the Lord with his body, mind, and words. 164. Swarupera Indriye Prabhura Nrjindriya Gana Avishtahana Kare Gana Aspadana. The senses of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were identical with the senses of Swarup. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to become fully absorbed in tasting the singing of Swarup Damodar. 165. Bhavera avesheka bhumite vasiya tarjani te bhume leke adho mukhahana. In emotional ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would sometimes sit on the ground looking down, would write on the ground with his finger. 166. Angulite kshatahabe jani damodara vaye nija kare niva raye prabhukara. Fearing that the Lord would injure his finger by writing in this way, Swarup Damodar checked him with his own hand. 167. Prabhura bhavam rupa swarupera gana yaveyehi rasataha kare murtinam. Swarup Damodar used to sing according to the ecstatic emotion of the Lord. Whenever a particular mellow was being tasted by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar would personify it by singing. 168. Shri Jagannath Tera Dekhe Shri Mukha Kamala Tahara Upara Sundara Nayana Yugala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu looked upon the beautiful lotus-like face and eyes of Lord Jagannath. 169. Suyera Kirane Mukha Kare Jala Mala Maya Vasra Divya Alan Kara Parimala. Lord Jagannath was garlanded, dressed with nice garments, and adorned with beautiful ornaments. His face was glittering from the rays of sunshine, and the entire atmosphere was fragrant. 170. Prabhura Hridaye Ananda Sindhu Uta Lila Unmada Janja Vata Tachane Utila. An ocean of transcendental bliss expanded in the heart of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and symptoms of madness immediately intensified like a hurricane. 171. Anandon Made Uttaya Bhavera Taranga Nanabhava Saniye Upajila Yudharanga. The madness of transcendental bliss created waves of various emotions. The emotions appeared like opposing soldiers staging a fight. 172. Bhavodaya Bhavashanti Sandhi Sabalaya Sanchari Sattvikastai Svabhava Prabhaya. There was an increase in all the natural emotional symptoms. Thus there were awakening emotions, peacefulness, joined, mixed, transcendental, and prevalent emotions, and impetuses for emotion. 173. Prabhura sarirayena sudhahe machala bhava puspa drumatahe puspita sakala. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's body appeared like a transcendental Himalayan mountain, bearing ecstatic emotional flower trees, all of them blooming. 174. Dekhite akarshaye sabhara chitamana premamrita vristiye prabhu sinche sabhara mana. The sight of all these symptoms attracted everyone's mind and consciousness. Indeed, the Lord sprinkled everyone's mind with the nectar of transcendental love of God. 175. Jagannatha sevaka yatha raja patra gana yatrika loka nila chala vasi yatra jana. Translation. He sprinkled the minds of the servants of Lord Jagannath, the government officers, the pilgrim visitors, the general populace, and all the residents of Jagannath Puri. 176. Prabhura nritya prema dekhi haya chamatkara Krishna prema ucha lila hridaye sabara. Upon seeing the dancing and ecstatic love of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, everyone became astonished. In their hearts they became infatuated with the love of Krishna. 177. Premena se gaya loka kare kolahala Prabhura nritya dekhi sabe anande vibhavala. Everyone danced and chanted in ecstatic love, and a great noise resounded. Everyone was overwhelmed with transcendental bliss just to see the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 178. Ayera ki kaya jagannatha haladhara Prabhura nritya dekhi sukhe chalila mandara. Apart from the others, even Lord Jagannath and Lord Balaram, with great happiness, began to move very slowly upon seeing the dancing of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. 179. Kabusukhe nrityaranga dekhe rata raki Sekotukaye dekila seitara sakshi. Lord Jagannath and Lord Balaram sometimes stopped the car and happily observed Lord Chaitanya's dancing. Anyone who was able to see them stop and watch the dancing bore witness to their pastimes. 180. Ehi mata prabhu nritya karite brahmite Rataparudre da age Bhagila padite. When Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was dancing and wandering in this way, he fell down in front of Maharaja Prataparudra. 181. Sambrame Prataparudra Prabhuke Dharila Kanhake Dekhite Prabhura Bhaye Jana Haila. Maharaj Prataparudra picked up the Lord with great respect, But upon seeing the king, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to his external senses. 182. Raja dekhi Mahaprabhu karena dikara Chichi vishari ira sparsha haila amara. After seeing the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu condemned himself, saying, "Oh, how pitiful it is that I have touched a person who is interested in mundane affairs." 183. Aveshete Nityananda Nahaila Sabhadhane Kashishvara Govinda Chaila Anyastane. Not even Lord Nityananda Prabhu, Kashishvara, or Govinda took care of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he fell down. Nityananda was in great ecstasy, and Kashishvara and Govinda were elsewhere. 184. Yadyapi Rajara Deki Hadira Sevana Prashana Hana Chaitandre Mili Bare Mana. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had already been satisfied by the king's behavior, for the king had accepted the service of a sweeper for Lord Jagannath. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually desired to see the king. 185. Tatapi apanagane karite savadhana maheki churo sabasa kaila bhagavan. However, just to warn his personal associates, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu externally expressed feelings of anger. Purport. When Maharaja Praptaparudra asked to see the Lord, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately refused, saying, Nishkinchanasya Bhagavad Bhajanno Mukhasya Param Param Jigamishur Bhava Sagrasya Sandarshanam Vishayinam Atayoshitam Cha Hahanta Hanta Visa Vakshanato Pi Asadhu. Chaitanya Chandrodaya Nataka 8.23. The word Nishkinchanasya refers to a person who has finished his material activities. Such a person can begin to execute his activities in Krishna consciousness to cross over the ocean of nescience. It is very dangerous for such a person to have intimate relationships with mundane people or to become intimately related with women. This formality is to be observed by anyone who is serious about going back home, back to Godhead. To teach his personal associates of these principles, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu expressed external anger when touched by the king. Since the Lord was very much satisfied with the humble behavior of the king, he intentionally allowed the king to touch him, but externally he expressed anger just to warn his personal associates. "186. Abura vachane rajara mane hailabaya sarvamboma kahetumi nakara samshaya." King Prataparudra became frightened when Lord Chaitanya showed external anger, but Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told the king, "Don't worry." 187. Tomara upare prabhura suprasana mana tomalaksha kari sikhayena tomalaksha kari sikha yena nijagana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya informed the king, "The Lord is very satisfied with you. By pointing you out, he was teaching his personal associates how to behave with mundane people." Purport. Although outwardly the king has was a mundane man interested in money and women. Internally, he was purified by devotional activities. He showed this by engaging as a street sweeper to please Lord Jagannath. A person may appear to be a pounds and shillings man interested in money and women, but if he is actually very meek and humble and surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not mundane. Such a judgment can be made only by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his very confidential devotees. As a general principle, however, no devotee should intimately mix with mundane people interested in money and women. 188. Avasara janiyami kariba nivedana seikale yaikariha prabhura milana. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya continued, I shall submit your petition when there is an opportune moment. It will be easy for you to come and meet the Lord. 189. Tabe maha prabhurata pradakshina kariya rata pacheya itele rate mata diya. After circumambulating Jagannath, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went behind the car and began pushing it with his head. 190. Delitehi chalila rata hada hada kari chaturdi ke loka sabha vale hari hari. As soon as he pushed the car, immediately started to move, making rattling noise. The people all around began to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hurry, hurry. 191. Tabe Prabhu Nija Bhakta Ganalana Sange Baladeva Subhadagre Nritya Kare Range. As the car began to move, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took his personal associates in front of the cars occupied by Lord Balaram and Subhadra, the goddess of fortune. Greatly inspired, he then began to dance in front of them. 192. Tahanritya Kari Jagannatha Age Aila Jagannatha Dekhi Nritya Kari Te Lagila. After finishing the dance before Lord Baladev and Subhadra, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came before Lord Jagannath's car. Upon seeing Lord Jagannath, he began to dance again. 193. Chaliya Aila Rata Balagnadi Thane Jagannatha Rata Dvaki Dekha Dahine Vame. When they reached the palace called Balagandi, Lord Jagannath stopped his car and began to look left and right. 194. Mame Vipra Sashana Narikela Vana Dahine Tapuspodhyana Yena Vrndavana. On the left side of Lord Jagannath saw a neighborhood of Brahmins and a coconut tree grove. On the right side, he saw a nice flower garden resembling those in the holy place Vrndavan. Purport. Vipra Sashana is a word generally used in the Orisha province to indicate the quarters where Brahmanas live. "195. Ake nritya kare gora gana bhakta gana rataraki jagannatha karena darshana." Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees were dancing in front of the car, and Lord Jagannath, having stopped the car, watched the dancing. 196. Seistale bhogalage achaye niyama koti bhoga jagannatha kare asvadana. It was customary that food be offered to the Lord at the Vipra Sashana. Indeed, innumerable dishes of food were offered, and Lord Jagannath tasted each one of them. 197. Jagannatera chotha bara yata bhakta gana nija nija uttama bhoga kare samarpana. All kinds of devotees of Lord Jagannath, from neophytes to the most advanced, offered their best cooked food to the Lord. (198) Raja Raja Mahishi Vrinda Patra Mitra Gana Nilachala Vasiyata Shota Bharajana. These devotees included the king, his queens, his ministers, and friends, and all other big and small residents at Jagannath Puri. 199. Nana dese radese yata yatrika jana nija nija bhogatahan kare samarpana. All the visitors who had come from different countries to Jagannath Puri, as well as the local devotees, offered their personally cooked food to the Lord. 200. Age pache dui parsve Pushpadhyana vane yeyaha paya lagaya nahika niyame. The devotees offered their food everywhere, in front of the car and behind it, on the two sides and within the flower garden. Wherever possible, they made their offering to the Lord, for there were no hard and fast rules. 201. Bhogera samaya lokera mahavidhaila nirjachari mahaprabhu upavane gela. While the food was being offered, a large crowd of people gathered. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stopped his dancing and went to a nearby garden. 202. Premaveshe Mahaprabhu upavana pana Puspojane Grudha Pindaya Rahila Padiya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu entered the garden and, immersed in great ecstatic emotion, fell flat on a raised platform there. 203. Nirja Parishrame Prabhura Dekhe Gana Garba Sugandhi Sitala Vayu Karena Sevana. The Lord was very much fatigued from the hard labor of dancing, and there was perspiration all over his body. He therefore enjoyed the fragrant, cool breeze of the garden. 204. Yatha Bhakta Kirtaniya Ashiya Arame Prativriksha Tale Sabe Karena Vishrame. All the devotees who had been performing Sankirtana came there and took rest under each and every tree. 205. Eita Kahila Prabhura Maha Sankirtana Jagannatera Agayarche Karila Nartana. Thus I have described the great performance of congregational chanting by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as he danced in front of Lord Jagannath. 206. Rathagrete Prabhu Yaiche Karila Nartana Chaitanya Stake Rupa Goshani Chaitanya Stake Rupa Goshani Karyache Varnana. In his prayer known as the Chaitanyastaka, Srila Rupa Goswami has given a vivid description of the Lord's dancing before the car of Jagannath. Purport. Srila Rupa Goswami composed 3 prayers with the title Chaitanyastaka. The verse next quoted is text 7 from the first of the Chaitanyastika prayers, which are included in the book Stava Mala. (207) Vatarudhasyarad adhi haravi lila chala patir adhabraha premurmi surita matano lasa vivasaha saharsam dayadbihi parivrita tanur vaishnava janaiha sa chaitanyaha kim me punar api drushur yasyati padam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu danced down the main road in great ecstasy before Lord Jagannath. The master of Nilachala, who was sitting on his car, overwhelmed by the transcendental bliss of dancing, and surrounded by Vaishnavas who sang the holy names, he manifested waves of ecstatic love of Godhead. When will Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again be visible to my vision? 208. Ihaye sunise Sri Chaitanya paya Sudrarha Vishvashasaha Prema Bhakti Haya. Anyone who hears this description of the car festival will attain Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He will also attain the elevated state by which he will have firm conviction in devotional service and love of Godhead. 209. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pare Yara Asa Chaitanya Charitamrta Kahe Krishna Dasa. Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa, Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I Krishna Das narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, following in their footsteps. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta Madhya Lila, 13th chapter, describing Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's ecstatic dancing at Lord Jagannath's car festival. Chapter 14. Performance of the Vrndavan pastimes. Dressing himself as a Vaishnava, Maharaj Praptaparudra entered the garden at Balagandhi alone and began reciting verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. He then took the opportunity to massage the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The Lord, in his ecstatic love for Krishna, immediately embraced the king and thus bestowed mercy upon him. When there was an offering of prasadam in the garden, Lord Chaitanya also partook of it. After this, when Lord Jagannath's Ratha car stopped moving, King Prataparudra called for many elephants to pull it, but they were unsuccessful. Seeing this, Lord Chaitanya began to push the car from behind with his head, and the car began moving. Then the devotees began pulling the car with ropes. Near the Gundicha temple is a place known as Aitota. This place was fixed up for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to rest in. When Lord Jagannath was seated at Sundarchala, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw it as Vrndavan. He performed sporting pastimes in the water of the lake known as Indrayumna. For nine continuous days during Ratha Yatra, the Lord remained at Sundarchala, and on the 15th day he and Sri Damodar observed the pastimes of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune. During that time, there was much talk about the pastimes of the gopis. When the Ratha was again being drawn and the chanting resumed, two devotees from Kulinagram, Ramananda Vasu and Satyaraj Khan, were requested to bring silk ropes every year for the Ratha Yatra ceremony. Text 1. Ora pasyan atma vrindanai Sri Lakshmi Vijayot Savam Srutva Gopi Raso Lasam Vresta Premna Nanarta Saha. Translation. Accompanied by his personal devotees, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to the festival known as Lakshmi Vijayotsava. There he discussed the super excellent love of the gopis. Just by hearing about them, he became very pleased and danced in great ecstatic love for the Lord. 2. Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Sri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Dhanya. All glories to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, known as Gaura Chandra. All glories to Lord Nityananda Prabhu. All glories to Advaita Acharya, who is so exalted. 3. Jaya Jaya Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Gana Jaya Shrota Gana Yandra Gaura Prana Dana. All glories to all the devotees headed by Srivas Thakur. All glories to the readers who have taken Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as their life and soul. 4. Ehi mata prabhu vachena premera aveshe henat kale prataparudra kalila praveshe. While Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was resting in ecstatic love, Maharaj Prataparudra entered the garden. 5. Sarvabhoma upadeshe chadiraja vesha ekala vaishnava veshe karila pravesha. Following Sarvabhoma Bhattacharya's instructions, the king had given up his royal dress. He now entered the garden in the dress of a Vaishnava. Purport. Sometimes members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, especially in the Western countries, find it difficult to approach people to distribute books because people are unfamiliar with the traditional saffron robes of the devotees. The devotees have therefore inquired whether they can wear European and American dress before the general public. From the instructions given to King Prataparudra by Sarvabhoma Bhattacharya, we can understand that we may change our dress in any way to facilitate our service. When our members change their dress to meet the public or to introduce our books, they are not breaking the devotional principles. The real principle is to spread the Krishna consciousness movement, and if one has to change into regular Western dress for this purpose, there should be no objection. 6. Sabhabhaktera Agyanila Yodahatahana Prabhupada Daripade Sahasa Kariya. Maharaj Prataparudra was so humble that with folded hands he first took permission from all the devotees. Then with great courage he fell down and touched the lotus feet of the Lord. Anki Mudhi Prabhu Preme Bhumite Sayana Nrapati Naipunye Kare Para Sambhahana. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu lay on the raised platform with his eyes closed in ecstatic love and emotion, the king very expertly began to massage his legs. 8. Rasa Lilara Shloka Pari Karena Stavana Jayati Te Daikam Adhya Yakarena Patana. The king began to recite verses about the Rasa Lila from Srimad Bhagavatam. He recited the chapter beginning with the words Jayati Te Dikam. Purport. These verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 31, constitute what is known as the Gopi Gita. 9. Sunite Sunite Prabhura Santosha Apara Bala Bala Bali Prabhu Bale Bara Bara. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard these verses, he was pleased beyond limits, and he said again and again, "Go on reciting, go on reciting." 10. Tava katam vritam shloka rajaye padila uti prema vesha prabhu alingana kaila. As soon as the king recited the verse beginning with the words Tava katam vritam, the Lord arose in ecstatic love and embraced him. 11. Tumi more dire bahu amulya ratana ora kichu dite nahi dilun alingana. Upon hearing the verse recited by the king, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, "You have given me invaluable gems, but I have nothing to give you in return. Therefore, I am simply embracing you." 12. Etabali sehi shloka pade bhara bhara dui jannara ange kampa netre jaladhara. After saying this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu began to recite the same verse again and again. Both the king and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were trembling, and tears were flowing from their eyes. 13. Tava katmritam tapta jivanam kavirbir iditam kalmasa famam shravana mangalam Srimad attatam bhuvi grunanti ye bhurida jannaha. My Lord, the nectar of your words and the descriptions of your activities are the life and soul of those who are always aggrieved in this material world. These narrations are transmitted by exalted personalities, and they eradicate all sinful reactions. Whoever hears these narrations attains all good fortune. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. Those who spread the message of Godhead are certainly the most munificent welfare workers. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 10.31.9. 14. Burida burida bali kare alingana inho nahi jane ihon hayakun jana. After reciting this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately embraced the king and cried, "You are the most munificent! You are the most munificent!" At this point, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not know who the king was. 15. Purva seva dekhi tanre kripa upajila anusandhana vinha kripa prashada karila. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy was aroused because of the king's previous service. Therefore, without even asking who he was, the Lord immediately bestowed his mercy upon him. 16. Ehi dekha chaitanyera kripa mahabala tara anusandhana vina karaya safala. How powerful is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu! Without even inquiring about the king, the Lord made everything successful. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is so powerful that it acts automatically. If a person renders loving service to Krishna, it never goes in vain. It is recorded in a spiritual account, and in due time it will fructify. This is confirmed by Bhagavad Gita 2.40. Neha vikrama naso sti pratha pratya bhayo na vijayate sva apam apiyasya dharmasya trayate mahato vaya. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has particularly bestowed upon all fallen souls in this age the most potent method of devotional service, Sankirtana. the congregational chanting of the Lord's names, of the Lord's holy name, and whoever takes to it through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is immediately elevated to the transcendental position. As Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.32 recommends, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayar Yadjanti Hisu Medhasa. A student of Krishna consciousness must receive Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. Then his devotional service will quickly succeed. This was the case with King Prataparudra. One has to be noticed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and a little service with sincere efforts will convince the Lord that one is a proper candidate for returning home, back to Godhead. At first, Maharaj Prataparudra did not have a chance to meet Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but when the Lord saw the king was serving Lord Jagannath as a menial sweeper, the Lord's mercy upon the king became a solid fact. When Maharaj Prataparudra, in the dress of a Vaishnava, was serving the Lord did not even inquire who he was. Rather, he had compassion upon him and embraced him. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami wants to point out that nothing could compare to the Lord's mercy toward Maharaj Prataparudra. Therefore, he uses the word Dekha, just see, and Chaitanya Kripa Mahabala. How powerful is the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This is also confirmed by Prabhupada Saraswati, Yat Karunya Kataksha Vaibhava Vatam, Chaitanya Charitamrta 5. Even a little of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy serves as a great asset for spiritual advancement. Therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement must be spread through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When Rupa Goswami experienced the mercy of magnanimity of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Name Gora Trishe Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, who is more magnanimous than any other avatar, even Krishna himself, because he is bestowing freely what no one else has ever given, pure love of Krishna. Srila Lochan Das Thakur has also sung Paramaha Karuna Parama Karuna Pahun Vijana Nitai Gaura Chandra. The two brothers Nitai and Gaura are so kind that no one can compare to them. Similarly, Srila Narottam Das Thakur has sung Brajendra Nandana Yei Sachi Sata Haila Sei Parama Haila Nitai Dina Hina Yata Chila Hari Name Udharila Tatra Tara Sakshi Jagai Madhai. Just to deliver all the sinful persons of this age by propagating the chanting of the holy name, Lord Krishna and Lord Balaram have advented as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda Prabhu. Jagai and Madhai are evidence of their success. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's special mission is the deliverance of all fallen souls in Kali Yuga. Devotees of Krishna must persistently seek the favor and mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to become fit to return home back to Godhead. Thus ends our reading for today. All glories to Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai. All glories to Om Vishnupad Srila Nimam and Srila Bhakti Acharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Shanta Maharaj. Dandavat Muni Maharaj. Dandavat Sumangala Didi.